video, we are going to be creating a tree map, which is similar to a heat map in that they take advantage of the same pre-attentive processing cues. We will be encoding one quantitative value, sales, on size, and another quantitative value, profit, on color, just like we did here with this heat map. However, tree maps look different, their purpose is somewhat different, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute, but I think it's easier to have an example in front of you when we talk about those things. So let's start creating the tree map. This is not one that we can easily recreate by duplicating, so let's go in and click the button to add a new worksheet to the workbook, and then we will right click to rename the sheet, and we will call it tree map. Tree maps are useful when you want to display a lot of data points in a very small space and when there are hierarchical relationships in the data that you want to represent. And we've got two hierarchies in our data set, and we are going to be using the product hierarchy to create this view. So let's start by going up and selecting category, the top level of the product hierarchy. I'm going to hold down my command or control button depending upon whether you're using a PC or a Mac, and then go down and select sales from measures. With those two fields selected, let's go up to show me and let's select the option for a tree map, which is on the fourth row, first column. And this is going to generate a very basic tree map for us. What you see here is that a tree map, it usually represents as a rectangle. It automatically expands to fill whatever space is allocated to it, which is one of the reasons that it's a very useful tool to have on a dashboard. And what it does, here we're using size. There are three product categories within this data set: technology, furniture, and office supplies. The size of the boxes that you see within the tree map represent the sum of sales. And the way that the data are typically organized is that your larger values are in the upper left-hand corner, and it goes to your smallest values being in the lower right-hand corner. Now, at this point, there are only three values in the view, so you don't really get a good visual of that, but let's take the next step so that you can begin to see that. Let's go over, and you can see that we have category is on label, and let's expand out so that we're seeing both categories and subcategories. So let's click on that expand button, and now you start to see a better representation of what tree maps typically look like. When we expanded out from category to subcategory, notice that there are these additional groupings, and this is where tree maps are useful when you're using data that are hierarchically organized. So for instance, this upper the dividers that separate the upper left-hand corner, there are 4 data points within this section. Each one of those 4 groups belongs to the technology category, and they're positioned in the upper left-hand corner of the tree map because technology as a category overall is the largest contributor to sales, followed by furniture, which is placed in the lower left-hand corner, and then we have office supplies, which is still occupying that entire right-hand space. Let's go in and add even more detail to this. Let's make it to where it is we have a data point on the tree map that is identical to the data points that we have on the heat map, which means in addition to looking at all of the subcategory combinations, we're also going to add regional information. So let's go back over to the tree map and drag region, and we're going to drag region over onto detail. Actually, while we're at it, I also want the region to display on label, so I'm going to drag that copy of region that just displayed on the marks card up to label. Now what we have is a data point for every subcategory region combination. If you look in the bottom left-hand corner, there's 68 marks in this view, just like there were 68 marks in the view for the heat map. One data point for every region subcategory combination. So now you can see that you've still got technology in the upper left-hand corner, but it has been further subdivided so that phones within the technology category are the largest contributor, and that's why it's in the upper left-hand corner. And if you go all the way down to the lower right-hand corner, you can see that the smallest volume of sales is contributed by fasteners in the office supply categories, and then each one of the data points in there gives you sales for each of the four regions. Heat maps are great for getting a lot of data into a very small space. They're not great when you're wanting to make very specific comparisons among quantitative values. They really are most useful for finding things at the extremes that make them stand out. Your very large or small quantitative values, or data points that are significant in some other way. So for instance, let's encode another quantitative value in this heat map. In addition to having sales, right now, sales is on both size and color. But let's change that. Let's go over and grab profit from measures and drag it up to color. And now you can start to see some extremes. I mean, we've still got the same size to tell us what the relative proportion of sales is, but you've also got color to tell you where your best and worst performing data points are along profit. You can very quickly look at this and see that from a profit perspective, your biggest problem is in the furniture categories with tables in the eastern region. So that use of color and size really draws your eyes to the most important data points in this sea of data points. And that's what tree maps do really well. Just like with the heat map, I don't want to use this red-green diverging color scheme. So let's go in and change that really quickly. I'm going to go over to my sum of profit legend, click the drop-down arrow, go to edit colors. In the drop-down under palette, go down and change it to orange-blue diverging. And then click on OK. It's not changing the content of the view in any way, it's just changing the color scheme of it. So tree maps are really designed for space efficiency, which makes them a great addition to dashboards, assuming they're used for the appropriate circumstances. I mean, if your goal is to really do side-by-side comparisons, then a tree map isn't going to be your friend. You would want to go with some sort of column chart or bar chart and limit the number of data points on those charts to the subset of data that you're particularly interested in. But when you want to compare a large number of data points at once in a relatively small amount of space, and you're looking for special data points that meet some sort of criteria or are at some extreme, then a tree map is a very useful tool for you.